about the topic of sustainability as it relates to the design and build process. So I'm going to introduce our panelists to you and ask them to talk a little bit, give an overview of their perspective with respect to this issue, and then we've got some questions. And I want to ask everyone here to be thinking about questions that you'd like to pose to them, because I will at points ask if the audience has any questions they'd like to hear our distinguished panelists talk on. So with that, let me introduce first, sitting right here on my left, Brian Lamel. Brian is with TLC Engineering for Architecture. He's an MEP engineering designer and is also a lead accredited professional. He has his Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering from Georgia Tech. And as someone who has personally had the chance actually recently to work with Brian and his team at TLC on actually some sustainable related issues, this next piece that I pulled out of his bio is not just marketing speak. I can tell you that from personal experience. It's the truth. Brian and his team, they use out-of-the-box creativity to create simple sustainability, right? Our last panelist is Bill Burns, excuse me. He has been with the City of Orlando Department of Public Works for 22 years, and he has overseen and project managed many transportation, environmental building, and recreation projects. He has a civil engineering degree from the University of Arizona, as well as graduate degrees from UCF.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm managing the city's Fire Station #1 project in downtown Orlando. In fact, I guess I managed it. We're pretty much complete with it. The substantial completion occurred in November of 2009, and the fire department moved in. Perhaps you're familiar with the station. It's downtown between Pine Street and Central Boulevard and the old Lynx bus station. The project is tracking for LEED Gold. And I say tracking, and you may find that somewhat peculiar that they moved in and we, as of yet, don't have certification. But thanks to the design-build relationship, we're working with the contractor in a professional manner and to work out a minor detail. So, fortunately, I think the process avails itself to do so. If we had done hard bid, I think we'd be perhaps in court. But the design builder has stepped up, and so kudos to the process. I thought I'd give you just a quick overview of that project, so perhaps you can glean some of the different processes that we use to see if that is something that you perhaps would use in one of your projects. Initially, we went out for a qualification-based selection, RFQ, for the design-build company. And we selected somebody. We used qualification-based selection and not best value because at the time, the owner really didn't know, the city didn't know, what type of LEED type of items we really wanted. And we also didn't really have our programming down for the fire station too well. So qualification-based enabled us to negotiate and work with the designer in order to develop some of these things. Subsequent to choosing the design builder, the city economic development folks said, gee, you know, you have this site downtown Orlando, and you have a 4-story fire station. You have all that air above the fire station in such a prime location. Let's think about using that space to develop a vertical mixed-use building. And so the city went out for another RFQ, qualification-based selection, to choose a developer. And so we chose a developer, and then we married the developer with the design builder and the owner. So it was kind of a tri-party type of relationship. And so we moved forward with that, and we negotiated the fee with the design builder first, the profit. And with that, then we moved on to negotiation for the design phase, so the pre-construction phase. Went to council, got approval for that. Subsequently designed this vertical mixed-use project to perhaps around 20% or so. And then we worked with the developer on some of the agreements, the air rights agreement, the developer's agreement, the parking agreement. And I would say that in hindsight, it would have been prudent for the owner to show the developer some of these agreements, and also to reveal what the value of the air rights agreement that the city had in mind. So the more information earlier in the process, the better. We kind of got bogged down with that process, but ultimately the private partner pulled out primarily because of the market conditions. You know, this was around 2008, 2009, and so the commercial real estate, business obviously was what it was. And I think we could have overcome these other hurdles, but like I say, a lesson learned, I think the city would reveal and facilitate these documents earlier in the process. With the failing of the public-private partnership, and the city moved on, negotiated the design phase with the design builder, designed the project, and then we didn't go to the GMP until about 95% design. And so it really reduced the risk for the contractor because the design was pretty much done. We also, the city has a process where we keep everything pretty much open book. And we also require the design builder to solicit a minimum of 3 bids for each major block of work.